What if what you're waiting for isn't an answer, but a different perspective? On Saturday, June 13th, we gathered for a meditative writing session called The Pause Before the Emergence, in line with two remarkable celestial events underway. The new moon of June 15th was approaching, while Mercury was nearing its greatest eastern elongation. The moon was gradually disappearing from view as it prepared to begin a new lunar cycle, while Mercury was becoming easier to see, not because the planet itself had changed, but because our perspective from Earth had changed. One celestial body was becoming invisible, the other was emerging into view, and we were in the pause before the emergence. This invited us to reconsider the idea that emptiness is absence. Perhaps the unseen is not empty at all, but quietly preparing what comes next. Doted as the traditional messenger in symbolic references, Mercury would appear more visible as a new cycle approached. This invited curiosity, dialogue, and new ways of seeing. Around these ideas gathered other seasonal and cultural symbols, such as the white peony, reminding us of renewal, simplicity, and quiet strength, the deer, long associated with guidance, gentleness, and the search for what nourishes the soul, and aquamarine, a stone often connected with clarity, truthful communication, and inner calm. That is how I approach every meditative writing session. I begin with something real, a celestial event, a seasonal transition, or a phenomenon in nature. Science offers observable facts. Philosophy invites reflection, and symbolism, including astrology, opens another way of contemplating the same moment. I don't use these events to predict the future. I use them to inspire the imagination. They don't tell us what to write, they simply open a door. Once that door opens, every journey becomes unique. There is no right or wrong destination. Some participants discover that the story belongs to them. Others find themselves writing through the eyes of someone they love, a complete stranger, or even an entirely fictional character. Some return with a poem, others with a dialogue, fragments of sentences, a drawing, or pages of unexpected prose. Nothing is judged, corrected, or interpreted during the session. We begin the meditation together, but each person follows a different path. During the session, one participant crafted a poem of rhythmic questioning, of opposing elements facing one another, and ultimately bringing the audience to dare to embark on an adventure, even if we run into the wall. Dare the impossible. Another traveled through a misty landscape on a flying carpet toward a magnificent tree scented with jasmine. Another returned to memories of 9 years in India, rediscovering tiny details she hadn't given herself time to notice, and realizing that the beauty in ordinary moments had quietly shaped her life. None of these journeys were planned. None could have been predicted. They emerged naturally once imagination was given a safe place to wander. That is why I love this practice. In a moment, I'll read the text that emerged for me during the pause before the emergence. You'll be entering the story halfway through without knowing exactly where the journey began or where it will end. As you listen, I invite you to resist the temptation to understand everything. Instead, notice what moves you. Perhaps it will be a word, an image, a color, a symbol, or a single sentence that seems to linger. Write down whatever resonates, even if it doesn't yet make sense. Sometimes the smallest fragment becomes the beginning of a much larger story, and in the next part of this narration, I'll share the one that emerged for me. The noise irritates me, yet I recognize a phase of my former life when I, too, contributed to that chaotic energy. I wait in turn to hand my ticket to the attendant before setting off on a celestial journey. In the middle of a festival, my nerves are trembling, and dust settles in my throat, making me choke. Then comes the attendant's gesture. then the letter on sky blue paper bordered in green. What I retain is simply that the invisible can become visible, and the words love and shame. I place my hand against the sandy canvas of the temporary cave and step inside, having already forgotten about the other solitary person who completes my pair, or perhaps I simply do not see him. Sitting in the middle of the dark space, I feel at peace, as though being surrounded by the cold, obscure air brings me back to life. As the stars and the constellation begin to radiate light and warmth, I catch from the corner of my eye a small door opening and allowing a great wave of golden light to enter. There is no choice to make between the constellation and the door. I walk toward it into the luminous yellowish glowing mist. Nearly blind, yet filled with joy, I move forward. The meadow where I arrive, so richly green, shelters its beautiful white peonies. I gently stroke them as I walk toward the tree. I touch each one as I pass. They're soft. Standing at the foot of the tree, with one hand resting on its bark, I look up at the dancing leaves. What joy! When they suddenly turn orange-red, I step back, breathing deeply. The powerful energy overwhelms me, but what am I supposed to do? As I turn my head, the majestic deer approaches. It offers me support as my legs begin to tremble. It stretches out its head so that I may lean against it, and I wrap my arms around its head, resting mine upon it. Gently, it presses its head against my chest, encouraging me toward the tree. There, I sit down with my back against the bark. Looking upward, the dancing leaves become transparent like glass. They are the color of shifting crystals. One single leaf separates itself from the family. It drifts gently in the breeze like a falling leaf before landing on my lap. I pick it up in one hand. It is so delicate, so transparent, displaying every color as I move it. First slightly green, then blue, then violet. It slowly melts, and my skin absorbs its nourishment. My physical pain leaves me, and an energy of life fills my heart. I begin running around the tree, then climbing it. The great trunk rises so high, but eventually I reach the top and sit there, surrounded by dancing leaves. Suddenly, as though I'm not allowed to feel this happy, I realized that I'd missed the scene forming on the bark while I was climbing. When I look down, there is no longer any earth, no ground, no below. The place from which I began no longer exists. I weep for what I have lost, for what I can no longer see. In the distance, the deer appears among the clouds, and our eyes meet. I know it will always remain within me. Text analysis is not mandatory, but it is encouraged. Sometimes our writing leaves us with questions rather than answers. Researching a symbol, an object, a place, or even a single sentence can reveal new perspectives and deepen our understanding of what emerged. There is no single correct interpretation. Each person is responsible for exploring what resonates and allowing the discoveries to speak in a personally meaningful way. This text offered countless avenues for reflection. Certain phrases immediately stood out to me. Nearly blind but full of joy, I advance. A single leaf separates itself from the family, and the place from which I began no longer exists. Any of these could become the focus of an entire analysis. However, I enjoy selecting a single element from the text and researching it to uncover its significance. For this story, I chose the transparent fallen leaf. Before researching it, I define it exactly as it appeared in the story. A thin, transparent, multicolored leaf that melts like ice but isn't cold. A single fallen leaf containing nutrients and healing properties. From there, several interconnected paths began to emerge. Philosophically, leaves symbolize renewal, transformation, and the natural rhythm of change. A falling leaf adds another layer: impermanence, letting go, and emotional healing. Immediately, I found myself connecting these ideas to my own life. This year, I lost my job after 13 years, began building Serene Roots, enrolled in several training programs, and mapped out an entirely new professional future. I've been moving so quickly that the landscape around me has become blurred. Looking at this leaf, I realized something important. For the past year, I've been focused on purification, clearing away what no longer belongs. But perhaps the next stage isn't movement, perhaps it's healing. The leaf also drew my attention because of its transparency. Invisible colors become visible only when light passes through a leaf from the right angle. That immediately reminded me of the central theme of our workshop. A change in perspective makes the invisible visible. I could have viewed losing my career with bitterness after 13 years in the same company. Instead, I chose to finish my work well, support my colleagues through the transition, and begin building what comes next. The event didn't change, my perspective did. The science behind the leaf reinforced those reflections. A transparent leaf has lost much of its chlorophyll. That's the pigment that captures sunlight and transforms it into energy. Hidden beneath the green pigment are carotenoids, responsible for the yellow and orange colors that become visible as chlorophyll disappears. Those same carotenoids are converted into vitamin A, essential for vision, healthy cells, and immune function. Suddenly, even the science echoed the philosophy. Sometimes something valuable only becomes visible once something else falls away. As you can see, focusing on one small element naturally led me down several interconnected paths. Philosophy, symbolism, and science all began speaking the same language, creating a richer understanding than any one perspective could provide on its own. The analysis ultimately left me with two takeaways. The first was philosophical. Before continuing to build a new chapter, I need to allow myself time to heal. The transparent leaf became a reminder that restoration isn't separate from transformation, it's part of it. The second takeaway was practical. For quite some time, I've been waking up exhausted and experiencing persistent blurriness in my vision. While researching the leaf, I discovered connections I had never considered between chlorophyll, carotenoids, and vitamin A. Inspired by that research, I began taking a daily vitamin A supplement and have already noticed encouraging changes in my vision. My next step is to incorporate more chlorophyll-rich foods into my diet and continue observing what unfolds. To me, this beautifully illustrates the value of text analysis. A single symbol can lead us toward philosophy, science, personal reflection, and even practical changes in our daily lives. The goal isn't to prove that one interpretation is correct. The goal is to remain curious enough to explore where the journey continues once the writing has ended.